is Thingiverse going the way of MySpace now in terms of being the most famous, most maligned, and now the most breached of 3D printing websites? Now that this breach has exposed pretty much a big chunk, if not all, of Thingiverse users. Well, you could go under your account settings, change your password. But actually in a minute, I'll show you how to migrate your files all over to PrusaPrinters and then delete your Thingiverse. So I'm actually going to delete my Thingiverse because it was great while it lasted. And it was great that you could go onto Thingiverse, download any popular file, repost it, and you could get some exposure if you were really, really good. Unfortunately, Thingiverse has fallen by the wayside, and it's going the way of MySpace. There are so many other popular sites, like PrusaPrinters, 3D Warehouse, Cultist, GrabCAD. The NIH print exchange is actually unique if you want to get ones used by medical community. CG Trader, My Mini Factory, which actually does a good job of paying artists for their work. PinShare, TurboSquid, all sorts of other sites that have since done a lot to improve and be better than Thingiverse. So I'll include this link below. But unfortunately, right now I could see millions of people leaving Thingiverse. Thingiverse, the world's biggest 3D printing file sharing site, has been breached. And they've known about this for a year and have sat on it. So in this video, I'm going to show you some issues I've had with Thingiverse for a while. Then I'm going to show you how to migrate all your files over to PrusaPrinters. And finally, how to delete your files. So on Thursday, a Troy Hunt, who runs the site Have I Been Pwned, released a statement about breaches he was notified about, that Thingiverse had been severely compromised. Excuse me. And it appears that last year, someone left their computer open and left the backup files for all the usernames, logins, and test information that Thingiverse had on their backup file. And that list has been circulating for at least a year. So chances are this breach has been out in the dark web for at least 2 years. And when I went to haveibeenpwned.com, you could actually enter in your email, and found out that the one I use for Thingiverse, which is an older personal email, has been breached. You can also check your password here to make sure your passwords haven't been breached if you want to reset that. But Thingiverse has not done a great job at all addressing this. Because when all these media outlets and online newsletters have been asking them for a statement, they honestly get pretty much just a boilerplate paragraph. And even their Twitter page, they only have really 2 relevant posts. So we're aware and addressed an internal issue that led to the exposure of some nonsensitive user on data. Now, other times they've said there's only about 500 people affected. Yeah, so the exposure affects a handful of less than 500 real user data. The non-production, non-sensitive encrypted passwords. So all this spin here is saying on their Twitter page is that they've done jack shit. So it started when they stored all these passwords with a very weak encryption. And then again, someone probably left their laptop open or went on a public Wi-Fi and didn't secure their laptop. And 36 gigabytes is not 500 users information worth. So even if you believe the best case scenario from Thingiverse, then only 500 people got a hit. But they haven't sent me a notice, and they have sent some out, and other people have shared those. But it's not 500 people. It's got to be 280,000 is the high number from Have I Been Pwned. Now I believe that number over anything Thingiverse is saying right now. So Thingiverse has done jack squat to actually kind of address this issue publicly. And I think the big reason is because they're owned by Stratasys, which never really wanted Thingiverse in the first place. Thingiverse was a great thing from MakerBot that they took over. So when MakerBot sold out to Stratasys, Stratasys is a closed source company. And so the idea of sharing files publicly or sharing pieces of our equipment obviously stuck in their craw. And there's been a lot of issues with Thingiverse for the past few years, ever since they sold out to MakerBot sold out. Let me show you a couple things on mine. So for being a designer on Thingiverse, one of the things that's always really just been sticking my craw is they put ads on the site. Now it's their right, and they have to do what they need to do to pay the rent and pay the bills. But ever since they've done that, and I believe that was about 2013, 2014, I haven't been able to see my view count. Which is weird, because I have people downloading anywhere from 30 to, about 10 files a day. But no one's viewing it, apparently. So all my stats for all my files and downloads have been absolutely off. Another thing that's been that's annoying is Thingiverse never figured out how to pay their file creators. So you have people designing these files that are downloaded millions of times, and there's never really been a satisfactory way to pay them. There's been contests and things like that in the past, but no one wants a pack of filament from Thingiverse or from MakerBot. And they did have a tip section, so let me see if I can pull that up. So they did have a way to tip designers. They did absolutely nothing to advertise that. So you had designers making lots of designs, but unfortunately all they were getting was exposure. And I got maybe one tip my entire time for design. So there's never been an adequate way to really reward good creators on Thingiverse. And now with that breach, it looks like some of the pay information, because this goes to PayPal, was compromised, as well as the usernames and passwords. So once you decide to leave, I'll focus on PrusaPrinters, because they've actually made a super streamlined way to import your files from Thingiverse over to PrusaPrinters. And all you have to do is set up an account first with PrusaPrinters, two-factor verify it, make sure your password and everything from Thingiverse is not being used for this. And then once you do that, it'll ask you to link your account. And I actually started doing this back in November 2019. I brought a bunch of my popular files over. But I'm going to go ahead and select all my files. It'll take a minute to bring them in. Now, when it brings it in, some of the things you'll have to go through and clean up later. Pretty much, PrusaPrinters likes if you have G-code, which Thingiverse doesn't have up front. They prefer, Thingiverse has STLs. So it'll take a few minutes for this to import, but again, PrusaPrinters has made this a really straightforward process. And if you want to do this with other sites, please check with them. I understand that MyManufactory also has a pretty streamlined way to do it. You would have to check with the others. But yeah, get your files off of Thingiverse, and pretty much I'm going to delete my Thingiverse account after this. Just a breach like this, in the way that they basically neglected telling anyone for a year, means that they're not going to get any more service from us. Now, Stratasys is a private company and they do industrial 3D printers. They never wanted Thingiverse. So I could see in the future some lawyers are going to basically spin off MakerBot and probably let MakerBot take the fall, because MakerBot itself has not been a popular 3D printer company. Ever since MakerBot sold out to Stratasys, they've been trying to do these industrial printers, and they've been a joke. No one's paying $3,000 for their proprietary filament rolls and their highly enclosed heated chambered printers when you could get the same thing out of any other desktop printer. And MakerBot has lost all the respect they've had both in the open source and 3D printing community. So, unfortunately for MakerBot, they're probably going to end up taking the fall on this, because Thingiverse was their service when they were open source, and they basically neglected it ever since they sold out. So take that as you will. So once you import all your files from Thingiverse, some of them it's going to say they're drafts. So if they were incomplete or not finished in Thingiverse, it kind of puts them off to the side. You can always go back to your drafts and clean it up later. But it looks like it imported all the other files I wanted. So if I go to my channel, yep, so I've got drafts here as well as published prints. And so I'll have to go through these later and clean them up. But all my popular files from Thingiverse are now in PrusaPrinters. So probably took about a couple minutes, just because my internet's a little slow, to download all the to import all the files. So this PrusaPrinters I like because they've made it as painless as possible to transfer. Now, before you ask, am I afraid of losing any of these files or anything else in this transfer? Most of these I've done in Tinkercad, or I have other backups in place, so I'm not worried about that. Cleaning up any files or any issues from the transfer could be done, as a weekend project or something later. So in a second, I'm going to say goodbye to Thingiverse, and so I'll take the link off my webpage. I've already separated out the Twitter page, so it won't link into my Twitter feed. And to do that is down here. You'll have to, under account settings, you could actually separate it out. I also went through and made sure that my PayPal link was cut off. And yeah, so PayPal link is cut out, Twitter's cut off, website. So I'm deleting everything first and saving it, and just that way, just clean up some of the record to make sure, it's a little add a little more confusion to Thingiverse. Let's see. And so with that, let's see, default images. So under account settings, Thingiverse settings, MakerBot, or app settings. there is the red button. Are you sure you want to delete it? Bye-bye MakerBot. So if you like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm still working on the video for the 5-year exposure test. And I'll do other videos on 3D printing as I can. So have a nice day.